I did that initially. I was like so in need of validation and approval when I played. That's why I was probably so scared for the longest time. Now I just play it and like whatever. But and it's good, but it's fun when the audience, is reacting with you and you with them. And you're not doing it for approval. You're doing it because you want to change lives and you want to be involved with your audience. It's definitely a different feeling than it is to just go out and play solely for that approval level.
Welcome to the Female Entrepreneur Musician Podcast with Bree Noble. Bree is a musician, entrepreneur, speaker, and founder of Women of Substance Music Radio and Podcast. Bree's interviews with successful female musicians and industry pros are both inspirational and informational. She also answers your questions about the music business. Bree is on a mission to help you create great music, connect with your fans, and grow your business, and to truly become a female entrepreneur musician.
Hey, this is Bree Noble. I want to thank you for tuning in to the Female Entrepreneur Musician Podcast, where we talk about making great music, connecting with your audience, and growing your business. And I've got a show today that I have been waiting quite a while to put out to you guys. I get the privilege of interviewing my friend and student, Michelle Lockey. And the coolest thing about this is she was my student in the Female Musician Academy, but she realized she had a passion and she had an expertise that she could share with other people. And so she created a course called Music Licensing for Film and TV that I have been presenting to my audience ever since she opened it up in March, and people have been loving it. And she's got this great masterclass that she's been sharing where she talks about all the things that you need to know about how to get started with music licensing, understanding how the business works, how you get in touch with supervisors, how all the money works in licensing, and so much more, how to write great lyrics for licensing. I mean, there's just so much packed into this masterclass that she does. And I am so excited to be co-hosting this with her on September 14th. So I want to encourage you to go to femusician.com/060. That is the show notes page for this episode of the podcast. And you'll see there a sign up for the masterclass that we'll be holding Wednesday, September 14th. And we've got 2 time slots. So hopefully all of you that are on different parts of the globe and, maybe are working or whatever can make it at one of these times. We've got noon Eastern, which is 9 a.m. Pacific. And we've also got 8 p.m. Eastern, which is 5 p.m. Pacific. So hopefully one of those times will work out for you. Go on over to FEM60.com/060 and register for the masterclass so we make sure that you get your spot. I just know you're going to love Michelle. You're going to learn so much and it's absolutely free. So why not? What I'm also really excited about on this episode is we're not just talking about music licensing. Michelle is going to talk about her whole journey with music and a really, really important part of how she had to overcome some serious stage fright, shyness, confidence issues. And she goes really deep into why those happened for her. She's being really transparent, and I totally appreciate that from her. So I know you guys are going to benefit from this episode on 2 levels. So I'm not going to make you wait anymore. Here is some information about Michelle Lockey. Michelle Lockey is an award-winning singer-songwriter who licenses her music to film and TV, teaches workshops on music licensing, and is giving back by building a community of songwriters that help support each other through the music licensing process. And I'll add, she's also really, really caring person and cares a lot about her students and making sure that they're getting all the tools that they need to reach their successful goals. That's definitely what I've heard from people that have sent me testimonials about Michelle. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. I know you'll get that feeling when you listen to her talk today on the interview. Here's my interview with Michelle Lockey. So that's a little bit about Michelle Lockey. So Michelle, is there anything that's not in that little bio that's maybe a little bit more personal or something interesting you want to tell our listeners about you?
Besides being a musician and a music business person, I have 2 dogs, 2 big 90-pound golden retrievers, and they're like my children. It's crazy. I'm an avid exerciser. I used to fly fish. which is always really fun. I also sing on my church's worship team. They're a worship band, and I do workshops for them as well.
Wow, how do you fit all that in?
I don't know.
What is your exercise of choice?
Well, right now, because I have some knee and back issues, unfortunately, it's well, not unfortunately, but it's weightlifting, and then I do biking. It's been so hot, I've just been doing indoor biking, but I usually there's a nice 20-mile ride in the country here that I like to do every now and then. And as soon as it gets a little bit cooler, I'm gonna start doing it again.
Yeah, me too. It's just been way too hot for exercise, unfortunately.
Exactly.
So how did you get started in music?
It's kind of a long, sordid story. So
hey, that's what this show is all about. Long, sordid stories.
I've always been interested since I was a kid. My cousins and some of my family always were playing piano or singing on choirs. And every time we'd go to Ohio, where my dad's family was, my cousins, they just somehow, I don't know, at a very young age, knew piano and singing and everything else. And I always wanted to sing. And but it's funny, Olivia Newton-John was like my favorite singer at the time. And because she sang like so high, like those high notes, and I couldn't hit them yet, I thought I wasn't a good singer. So even though I was writing songs and learned a little bit of piano and took piano, I didn't really kind of pursue it for several years. And then about, I don't know, 10 years ago, I think maybe more, I started karaoke, and then I joined the choir at church. I learned more about harmonizing, and then I started learning about the whole songwriting world again. Like, I know you could write songs, but never knew you could really make a living from them. So I started writing with some people in Nashville, and then I learned ukulele and guitar, and I think that was around like 2006, 7, 8, those areas. Then I started to really focus on music and songwriting and everything like that. So there's my long sordid story, sort of. It's like,
no, I think it's funny because I know we're kind of similar ages, and I grew up during that Olivia Newton-John. Like, another one was Sheena Easton. I was like, I would sing along with her, and I'm like, I can't hit those notes. How is she doing that? And eventually, once I trained my voice, now I sing, Phantom of the Opera and stuff. But back then, I was a total alto. Yeah. And I thought, I only can sing these low kind of songs. But I think that's funny that kind of made you think that you couldn't be a professional singer. Yeah. Because you couldn't sing those notes.
And I never knew that you could like take vocal lessons to train your voice, because I didn't start doing vocal lessons till like 2002 or something like that. And I did one musical in high school, and when I tried out for it, everybody's like, you can sing, and it was so scary though for me to step out and do something like that. I was Daisy May and Little Abner, but but that was kind of, a little bit of a stretch for me, kind of stepping out and doing that and getting over some doubts and whatnot, but it was cool.
That's fun. So at this point, do you consider yourself a full-time or a part-time musician? And how does that look for you? Like, what's your general kind of week look like?
I would say full-time, but it's more like full-time music business, not necessarily full-time playing musician, if that makes sense. So I'm currently doing all things music related, and that includes workshops that I develop. I got some students that I teach lessons to, and then I write for film and TV. And then I also will do gigs as well. In addition to that, I do some voiceovers. And I also, there's another thing on my list, and then I forgot what it was. Anyway, if it comes back to me, it will, because that's a lot of stuff right now.
That is a lot of stuff.
So I guess it's definitely a full-time business.
So I know you started out just as a musician, and then you moved into all these other things. But when you got started, is there any time period that you remember that you were just like really frustrated? You maybe felt like you were going to give up. And, what is something that you took out of that? What made you move forward and keep doing music when you could have easily given up? Like, what kind of story can you give our listeners that maybe might inspire them?
I think there were a few times that I wanted to give things up. The first one obviously was when we talked about earlier. I kind of gave up music before I even started because I thought I couldn't sing. I had a lot of shyness and self-worth issues. So it really made it hard for me to kind of to step out in any way. I was so, afraid of failing or being judged or not being good enough. And so that really put a hold on it. It's like throughout that life, I always knew that music somehow was part of me, but I never knew how to get there. And so I always kind of felt like I was wandering around a little bit lost, if that makes sense. And then when I finally started doing it, like in 2006, 7, 8, 9, is kind of those years I still had a lot of struggles. So it was probably around the time I started learning guitar and I started playing with some of the local people. They just knew chord changes and chord structures and could, hear a song and figure it out. And I couldn't do that. And I just felt really inadequate. And I just was like, is this really, am I going to be able to do this? It's just really where I want to go moving forward. And that's where friends and conferences and kind of getting into a group of people helped me kind of get over that hurdle. And that,
yeah, sometimes we feel like maybe the learning curve is too steep. Like, can we actually, if you feel like people are so far ahead of you?
Well, yeah. And especially when I was with film and TV, you can make things you can make a lot more music if you know how to produce music yourself. And so that was a whole nother learning curve. And that still is like, takes a lot of practice and a lot of years. And I still look at it because I kind of backslid this past year, which is, I'll tell you about that story in just a second. And so now I'm trying to, get back into the recording and the producing. And I'm just looking at it going, oh my God, I've lost like a year and a half of learning that. Am I going to get it back? And, what I have to realize though, is I don't have to do it all. I feel like I need to do it all, and that just may not be possible. So, if I can't produce a certain level of production, then that's why I have my co-writers and all that, but they're all busy too. So it's a little bit of a struggle. So the third time I felt like giving up so I had this, I can't really go into a lot of detail about this, but I was decided to go and plan a tour with a fellow musician. We created a group called Blue Cedar, and I really we both put a lot of work into it. I mean, so much work. I was doing, everything that a record label probably has like 15 people doing. And it was just, it went off well. We were well received. We sounded really good together. The last show we had was so great. And then it was just kind of all taken away. Mostly a financial thing. It's just too expensive. I mean, he's up in Canada, I'm here, and then just some other personal things here and there. And it just really sent me from an all-time high to an all-time low. And I didn't know how to get back, if that makes sense, for a while. And then I ended up having knee surgery and just all this other stuff. And, I was like, this is starting to feel too hard. What do I continue to try to get back what it took 8 months to a detour to plan this tour, or do I just go back and do what I was doing before, get a regular job and not do this as much? But I kind of fought through that because there are things that I wanted to accomplish that weren't that related to touring and gigging, like the workshops. I mean, that was always there and it was in my plan to do that. I just kind of felt like I got sidetracked. And now where I am now is really where I'm supposed to be. If that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. And do you feel like now that you've kind of found that niche in doing the workshops and the courses, has it reinvigorated your excitement for your own music?
It has. And the thing is, too, not only that, but just the planning that I've learned, like from you and your courses and the goal setting stuff. If I know that, okay, Wednesday and Thursday are music days, no matter what else is going on, I'm going to sit down and write. I'm going to sit down and record. I'm going to do vocals. I'm going to, get involved with that. Then you realize it's like, man, I really love to play. I really love to sing. I really love to create music and record it. And so it started to bring a lot of that back that I had lost for several months. So yeah, I mean, I feel much better than I did, a year ago. That's good. And it just shows you can get through things and kind of find your way back to where you need to be or on a new path.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that if you feel like you're banging your head against the wall, maybe you just needed to approach it from another direction, or maybe you needed to, maybe you find another outlet into music, and then that opens up the door to go back to the performing. I mean, I know for me, I get so inspired by my own students. Like, I haven't released an album since 2011. I haven't been touring, but I see what my students are doing and I'm like, maybe I want a piece of that again. Like, that looks so fun, and it has inspired me to want to, and I haven't been touring, but I have suddenly gotten a resurge of vocal work. And I'm like, maybe this is how I can still continue my music and keep my vocal chops up. And I've gotten a couple people asking me to give voice lessons and that kind of thing. And it's like another outlet, but would never have happened had I not done the whole courses and coaching thing. Right. Because I might have just been like, I'm done. Like, I can't do music the way that I did it before because I'm just in a different place. And so I'm done, So yeah, I think sometimes we approach it, we go the long way around.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's like if we would just, I don't know. It's like sometimes we need smacked around to be like, okay, listen, this is what you need to do and focus and go that way. And the students, become part of your support system too. So all of that is very crucial, I think, in keeping our heads above water for sure.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I'm sure when you release something now, they're going to be your biggest champions.
Right. Yep. Which is nice. And hearing stories from, your students and having them, open up to you and see that you're very sincere about caring about people, I think is really, really good. And, kind of humbles you a little bit as well. So.
For sure. So how did you overcome the shyness issue and the lack of confidence?
That's another long story. So, and part of the reason why that had happened is, and I was kind of the victim of a sexual predator when I was about 6, and through my entire life, I felt like that was all my fault. I mean, you're 6, everything's going fine, you don't see anything wrong, and then the police show up, and you have no way of processing that. So for most of my life, I just had this internal feeling that I was wrong, that I had no worth. And what I realized I was living a shame-based life, but I didn't know that until, I guess it was about, how old am I now? I don't want to say how old I am, but I guess several years ago when I was kind of on this musical journey, I just kind of realized how unhappy I was and how bad that I felt about myself. I mean, when you look in the mirror and you literally tell yourself that you're disgusting, that's not right. There's something not right. And I don't know if it was just the music and the support systems I had that started to make me realize this. So I had to get help, and I found a really good counselor and started seeing her. And then she had a group. It was a faith-based group, and we did 3 rounds of group therapy on like facing your past, dealing with your present, and then search for significance. And it just kind of opened up my eyes to the fact that what I was feeling is just, it's just, that wasn't right. It's not a normal thing to feel. And here's all the reasons why you might feel that way. There's fear of failure and perfectionism and just all this intricate stuff that goes into the mind and how you feel about yourself. And over time, once I kind of faced all that feeling of wrongness and that things are always my fault, and low self-worth started to evaporate and change. And they say that, whenever you're doing a new habit, like your brain actually has to form new connections and release old ones. Well, that's the same thing with any kind of therapy. It takes time for your brain to kind of reroute itself. And it was like, slowly I realized that I started to feel better about myself. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't have that feeling anymore. And that really was a big thing in overcoming the self-worth part. and helped with the shyness. Now the shyness, when I started doing karaoke, I guess I was starting to break through that shyness a little bit, but man, was I still so scared like every time I went up there. But so I'm just glad that I don't have those feelings anymore. And and I urge anyone listening that if you feel that way and you always feel stuck and you always feel like you're going to fail, you're always feeling wrong, to seek help in groups, because sometimes we can't battle this stuff by ourselves. Sometimes it's too deep, no matter how much planning and books and things we can read. You actually need to get help and start to examine why you're feeling the way that you did and deal with things. It's the hardest thing to do, to face yourself and to face your demons. I mean, it was very, very scary, but it was almost do or die. It's like I had to do it. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened. So,
yeah, I think this tends to come up for artists once they start putting themselves out there and you're on stage and people are giving you applause and praise, and you're thinking in your mind, I don't deserve this.
Right.
And then you start to realize, well, why am I thinking that? And, I've seen this in a lot of artists that's been the moment of realization, like you said, like they've buried something deep. And when they've put themselves out there and they've realized that they don't know how to accept praise, they've realized that there's something deeper going on and they've got some work to do.
Yeah. And there's also too, I've noticed a lot of artists, and we all do this, that we will sometimes play out because we need that validation and approval from others. And in the long run, you don't need other people to validate you. It's you and what's in you that makes you who you are and what your worth is. So and I'm not saying everybody feels this way, but I just, I did that initially. I was like so in need of validation and approval when I played. That's why I was probably so scared for the longest time. Now I just play it and like whatever, but and it's good, but it's fun when the audience, is reacting with you and you with them, and you're not doing it for approval. You're doing it because you want to change lives and you want to be involved with your audience. It's definitely a different feeling than it is to just go out and play solely for that approval level.
Yeah. And I think also, you are giving such a gift to your students because you're willing to be vulnerable like this. I think there's a lot of coaches out there and people in the music industry that just want everyone to think they've got it all together and they know exactly what they're doing. And I'm not from that school. Mm-hmm. Like, I am perfectly willing to tell people, this is how I screwed up. This is where I hope you can learn from what I did so you don't have to do it. And I know that that's a real gift that you give to your students because I've heard from some of them. Yeah. So I'm glad you're willing to do that. And you started creating courses when you were in a place where you felt comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the courses too, it's like, I just don't do the licensing courses, but I've been doing some women's workshops, based on your experiences, because there's so many people that just feel that way. And I really feel like you have to go through those experiences to be able to teach them. Plus, I have a training background too. So that part of me has always been there. I think I like to tell people what to do mostly. I remember in kindergarten, I got in trouble because I was I was dictating to everybody like how to build something. And one of the student teachers came up and told me I was being too bossy. So,
my mom always talks about when we were doing those like spring sing kind of performances at school in like the 4th grade, and I'd be up there telling everybody what spot they were supposed to stand in, and and tell them to stop talking in between songs and all that stuff. So I'm totally the same way. I guess that's why we ended up having courses.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into your course, I want to hear how you got started in music licensing.
Yeah. So I, let's see, I was writing in Nashville, and, kind of writing the country songs, the detailed songs, the hit songs, it was all about kind of getting cuts and that kind of thing. And, I was working with a studio in Baltimore. Song Builder Studios are great guys, friends of mine and everything. And, they mentioned Taxi. And then I think I also got like a mailing. It's like as soon as you write songs, all of a sudden you get on like all these lists. You just start getting stuff in the mail. Anyway, so I think I asked them about it. I asked a couple other people if they've heard about it, and I must have, there must have been a sale on the membership because I think I joined before I actually went to their yearly conference. So I joined, I went to the conference with some other music friends that were going.
What year was that, by the way?
That
Because I'm trying to
was,
think. I went 2 years. I think it was 2005 and 2006 or something like
I
that.
think mine was 8 and 9. I think was the first years that I went. And, I was still meeting the people that I met in Nashville. I met some big songwriters. Met and talked to Ralph Murphy and a bunch of different people. But I slowly started to listen in on the sessions about writing for film and TV. And then I got on the Taxi forum, and they have a whole thing on there, peer-to-peer reviews, and you get to meet people and talk about it. And I was still doing the whole detailed country writing thing until, I met a friend of mine through the forum, and he's like, oh no, when you write for film and TV, you need to do universal lyrics and this, that, and the other. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so from then, like finally, the third year I went, my focus was solely on film and TV. It's like, okay, let me learn this. I met all the people that were on the forum, go to the rally. We all kind of meet together, and I met some collaborators, and I had a really great friend then the following year, Paul Otten, who kind of helped me write a lot of stuff for film and TV and kind of helped me mold them a little bit, because he was getting a lot of forwards, he was getting placements, and he was getting deals. So it was really cool to be able to learn that way. And so, after 2011, it just kind of started taking off and doing a lot of collaborations and writing for that kind of stuff. And it was great. And it took some effort to kind of retrain my brain on how to write differently for film and TV. But, once I started listening to the critiques of the screeners and other writers, and then I started getting things signed, and then I'd meet those publishers, and, just kind of all starts to snowball is not the right word, but you know what I mean? It's like it starts to, well, maybe it is the right word, build, and then it just starts rolling like its own machine after you kind of learn everything and just start making deals.
Wow. Yeah. It's like you said, it's not the same as writing for country or writing for hit songs. It's a kind of a whole nother animal, which is why I think it's great that you've created a course, because I know it is clearly a very hot topic among people that, are on my email list and my social media circles and everything. Like whenever I mention licensing or post something about licensing, they're all into it, because it kind of feels like this holy grail, like this thing that you don't know how to crack, but you just feel like if you did, it would be awesome, Yeah. And so, what gave you the idea to come up with the course? And I'd love to hear, kind of your experiences with just launching it for the first time. I think it was, March of this year, and already, being ready to open your second time doing it live, and, all the kind of feedback from your students.
Since I had this training background, and this natural ability to lead or tell people what to do, depending on the way you look at it. I actually started my first independent course, meaning that at my old job, I used to do workshops and teach, not with licensing, but with the whole search for significance thing at my church. And I think I was talking to a few friends, because I started blogging about music licensing and writing like everything I knew. And somebody had suggested, oh, you should do an ebook or this or that and the other. And I'm like, well, why do an ebook when maybe I could set something up and teach people? I mean, there was a songwriting community here, and they knew that I was getting licenses. And, I had a little like 2-hour session at my house where Michael Laskow from Taxi kind of dialed in, and we talked about music licensing, and he listened to some of the group songs, and that was fun. So I decided first, the first workshop I had was an in-person 6-hour workshop here in the DC area, and that was last September.
I almost forgot about that.
Yeah,
that's right. That was kind of the beginning.
That was the beginning, right? I'm like, why not do this live? I mean, it seems interested because people started asking me questions anyway. They can we talk to you about licensing? Can you answer this question, this question? I'm like, I know how to do this. I've created trainings and workshops. So why not hold a workshop? And we had about 15 people come, and it was really good success. And then I was like, well, I know how to create online workshops, and I created like this. It's called Daydreamer or Dream Maker, which is kind of like how to find your passions, pursue your goals. And it's a quick, short course. So that was kind of the first independent online course that I did. And then I'm like, I have so much material. Why not make this into a live course, since I've got such a big audience of friends that are asking me about this anyway? Let's just do it and see what happens. I mean, I had the skills. I took formal courses and all this training development stuff. Why not use that in my music career? And I like to teach. I like to lead. It took me a long time to learn all this stuff. So if I can increase the speed at which others will learn, then that's going to help them on their path sooner. Because it does take a long time to learn this stuff if you're just going to conferences like once a year and that kind of stuff. So I think that's where I started. Now, I did take, well, I guess it doesn't really matter. I would say I did take a course myself in 2011 on music licensing from a music supervisor. But that really, that was 5 years ago. So it really didn't kind of hit me that I could be doing this stuff until this past year. So.
Yeah. And I know from experience, there's a bit of a learning curve in the technology wise of, getting, how am I going to set this up and how am I going to deliver the content and how are we going to do it live? And, did you find that intimidating at all?
Well, I already knew how to use a lot of the features and I already had a lot of development tools, but what I was trying to be able to find was, okay, what's going to be a good, cheap, like online way to do this? I was looking at the whole Google Hangouts thing, but I wanted, certain recording capabilities and all of that. And so I started searching online for these kinds of technologies, because I used to use WebEx and GoToMeeting and Live Meeting and all that stuff, but it's way too expensive for me.
It's so expensive. Yeah.
So that's when I found Zoom, which was totally cool. Doesn't cost that much for under like 50 participants at a time. And you could record it. It records the audio separate from the video, records them together. You get the chats, like all that stuff. And I can take the video and then just go edit it later if I wanted to add things or put in like notes and split things up. So it just seemed like a good solution at the time. So I just went for it. And then you helped me launch it, of course. So I'm so grateful for that, for sure.
It was so fun.
Well, and that's the hard thing for me is the marketing aspect of it, getting my head around all of that. And then at the Teachable site too, I forgot to mention that. So that site is just awesome for being able to upload courses and host them and everything. So it's great.
Yeah, I of course I use it and I love it. And I probably will be using Zoom soon enough. Yeah. But I love that you kind of are doing a bit of a hybrid that's allowing people at different levels to still learn. So I know that you started out with the live course, right, and then you moved it into a self-paced course, yep, which has also been really popular. What's kind of the different experiences, I mean, other than the price level, of getting the live version versus the self-paced?
Well, with the self-paced version, obviously people can just do it at their own pace. And then, every few weeks I'll have like a Q&A or something like that. Whereas the live version, it's more like a lot of hand holding and there's a lot of accountability. So, and you kind of get to know each other really well on the calls each week. So each class, even though I have a set curriculum every time we meet, there's always questions and somebody will say, well, what about this? And then I'll just go get on the internet and show them something live. And there's a lot of accountability. The following, the next week, if there is any homework, I will ask for volunteers if they want to show their homework and their assignments. So it kind of forces you to do the work. If you're that kind of person that needs that one-on-one, I mean, it's not one-on-one because there's me and several students, but if you need that kind of interaction to get you to do something, then the live course gets that for you. And it's more challenging because you have to keep up with it like every week. And one of my students was saying that she kind of misses the homework and the weekly interaction because it really, forced her to do this stuff and to focus on writing for film and TV. And the self-paced, you get just as much information. You don't get kind of the weekly Q&A and the extra tidbits of pushing, but I try to still prompt the people that are taking the self-paced to do their homework and to post it or email me. And a few of them are doing that, but not as many because they're going to wait till fall to take the self-paced course or something like that. So It just depends on your learning style, but the live definitely forces you to to do the work.
Yeah, I think what's cool about the live version is if you are a real go-getter and you're going to get the most out of it, it will be an experience almost like having a one-on-one coach, because you're the one that's going to be willing to ask the questions. You're going to be willing to present your homework. And, I know I've got like different kinds of students in my courses, and some of them are always willing to ask a question, always ready with their stuff, and they're getting so much out of it.
Yeah.
And there's other people, they're just still kind of onlookers and they're learning. But if you're really the kind of person that is willing to put everything into it, you get so much more than the cost of a course that's more like a group coaching kind of thing. It would be almost like a one-on-one experience for you. So another cool thing I know that you're going to be doing for the next course is you're going to be doing a challenge. You want to talk a little bit about what that's going to entail for the students?
So the 90-day challenge is kind of be like an add-on. So we're basically going to have 8 to 9 weeks of the course in the fall, and that's going to end right before the holidays in December. And then when we come back in the new year, we're going to have a 90-day challenge where there'll be assignments like every week. I still we're either going to meet once a week or once every 2 weeks. And I want to see like these certain assignments completed. And it's different than kind of what you're doing in class. It's like, now you've learned all this stuff in class, you're absorbing it, and now it's time to apply it.
Yeah. I think that's great, because really what we need is accountability. And that provides that accountability. Like you said, your student was saying, oh man, I don't have any homework, I'm not getting anything done. So yeah, any way that we can provide accountability for ourselves, it doesn't matter what level you are of songwriting or business, like we all need accountability.
Yeah. And it's, and I have, like I said, some of that stuff in the regular course, but this is going to be kind of the next level up from that. The 90-day challenge is we're going to be contacting, I'm going to make sure you contact libraries. It's going to be research that you have to do each week, forcing people to make more contacts so they can find people to help them produce if they can't produce. There's just going to be a whole set of things and items for them to complete. And some of them could be some personal goal setting type stuff too. And then in addition to that, I'll have another course that's associated with this course about fighting your fears. It's been in the making now for about a year and a half. And I think I've got some fear of releasing the Fighting Fears course. It's like, why? It's like, I know what I'm talking about. And it's pretty much all done. Now I just have to sit down and record it and kind of adjust it a little bit. So we'll have that, as well, which is a big part of it. People, they want to do it, but then there's just those little nagging fears that kind of stop you. So that's all, it's kind of all encompassing and if you're really serious about wanting to do this and move forward, it's definitely going to be worth your while. So
yeah, I think that fighting your fears could be really helpful, because I know when I write a song, I feel like it's my baby.
Yeah.
And then it's like you're sending your baby out to all these people that you don't know, and they could come back and say your baby sucks.
Right.
And how are you going to handle that? And how are you going to even get up the courage to do it in the first place?
Right. And that's, I think, what happens, because sometimes, like with Taxi too, it's like people will try it for a year. Well, I didn't get anything forwarded or make any connections. Well, did you write any new material targeting the listings? Did you learn this? Did you do that? And the answer is usually like, no. I just pitched what I already had, and these are songs that artists have made, and you put a lot of work into them, and they're for your album and your fans. But they might not necessarily suit what's out there in film and TV. And so then most people will just be like, well, I guess this isn't for me, and move on, when it could be for you.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I learned from the Taxi Road Rally and being in Taxi in general is you got to get over yourself and take
Yes.
the feedback and actually do something with it.
Exactly.
Because what's the point of you spending all this time sending this stuff out, not getting any forwards? You're getting all this feedback. They're actually writing something to you. They're giving you specific things that they think you need to fix. They get as specific as like, your pre-chorus doesn't work, or your verse is meandering, but the chorus is great,
Right. Yeah.
And why have we invested in that? Why do we not use it?
Yeah.
Because we feel like this song is done.
Right.
I've put everything into it. It's done. I'm not going to do anything. I already recorded it. I'm not going to do anything to it. And you're not utilizing the resource of these people that know what they're talking about, that are in a lot of times people just get really negative, like, oh, well, they're just, they don't like my stuff, or,
Right.
They're against me, or, no, they see so many songs. They're giving you honest feedback.
Right, exactly. And, you can also get feedback before you put stuff in the listings through the free forum. Texas is a free forum, and they have a peer-to-peer section. And these are all people that are part of my community. They know what they're doing. They're getting songs licensed. They're making money from music licensing. And it's really a community is what it is. And, I know there's a lot of people think it's all scammy and that kind of thing, but it's really not. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm where I am today with my music, is because of learning all this stuff through Taxi and making the connections and all that kind of thing. So
yeah. And of course, with your courses, you develop a community as well. And
Yep.
so as those people start to hone their skills and get stuff out there and start to get some placements, then there'll even be a community developed there.
Exactly. And I stay in touch with all my students. We have a private Facebook group for people who took the course, and they're free to email me whenever, and even the ones that haven't had a chance to take the self-paced yet, they'll often email me with their stories and open up their lives to me, which is just amazing, because they know that I care, and they've told me that to my face. Then I just start crying and stuff. So because it's just when you hear that you're actually helping people, it's humbling, and it's rewarding, and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's great that we're building this kind of thing together. So
yeah, and they've told me that too. In fact, I am having one of your very most favorite students, April, on the podcast in a few weeks as well, because she's just been such a big proponent of what you do, and you really are helping people, and that's, I think, what it's all about. So I'm really excited to be helping you launch this second live version of the course, and add-on challenge and all that stuff coming up. We're going to be doing a webinar. I think as of the time that this is airing, it'll be the next week, but there will be a way to sign up for the webinar right here on the podcast page at FEM60.com/060. This is podcast number 60. Which I can't believe I've already reached podcast number 60. But yeah, we'll be doing that on the 14th. There'll be 2 time periods that you can sign up for it. So come and hang out with us. Michelle's going to teach you so much stuff that she's giving out for free.
There's a lot of
just
stuff.
just to show you how much she knows. And that's just scratching the surface. So, I'm kind of putting this out here at the time period right before this webinar, so you guys can get excited about it and come hang out with us and learn a lot about music licensing and see if it's something that you want to try.
Yes, try it. You can do it. It's just a different way of learning, and come to the webinar. I really look forward to having you guys and talk to you guys. It'd be really cool.
Awesome. So if, in case people are catching this after the webinar's over and after you've already launched the live course and everything, where can people find out more information about you and your course?
You can go to my website, which is www.michelelocky.com. There's testimonials and videos and all kinds of stuff on there. And then I also have www.licensingsongs.com, and that takes you right to the course site, so you can see the different offerings and whatnot. So those are the 2 best places to find me.
I love that you got that domain.
Yeah.
Licensingsongs.com. Very cool. Well, thanks so much for sharing all this. I love that you were willing to be vulnerable and talk about, that's what I think is great about the show. We talk about more than just the nuts and bolts of music. We talk about the real, emotion and feelings and struggles and all that behind it. And you were really willing to share that. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be able to talk to people and to talk to you, and just keep doing this. It's awesome.
You're welcome. And come join us on the webinar. We will see you live on the 14th of September.
Now go out and make great music, connect with your fans, and grow your business. Female Entrepreneur Musician has been brought to you by FEM60.com and FemaleMusicianAcademy.com. With editing by Jen Eads of 317 Sound Design and music by Stella Ronson.